Okay, so I'm getting ready to go ahead and connect these computer connectors. These are color coded, and we're just getting ready to put these on. And give it a good push and then lock that back. Now this has got a tab that goes there. Be sure to put that back down. And let's see, we're going to, so we already got our shifter cable popped on there. There's not a lot that we disconnected. It was very few things that we had to disconnect. We've got a few cables here that we need to pull back up here, and we've got one going to this ground here that we need to get reconnected first. Okay, so put your ground back there. This routes around this way, and this clips on to your battery tray, the plastic part, if you want to clip that back. Now we have this one connects right here onto our positive, and that's like everything we got over here. So there wasn't much. We're just going to fasten. Now that we've got our throttle cable, we'll go ahead and just fasten this back. We shouldn't need any more access in here now, so we'll go ahead and fasten this back down with our 10 millimeters right there. And so we're going to just take this and put it back on to our battery cable, and we'll be finished with this up here for now. Now I do have a few vacuum hoses to swap over here and connect because they were disconnected. These are the ones that were cut off of the old engine they took out, but there's not a whole lot of stuff to really connect when you drop an entire engine out like that. It's just getting your main harness and stuff loose. Okay, if you remember this connector over here that was attached going down to the transmission, we got to reconnect this, and it was snapped on this right here, but it just kind of like fell off of there, so we may have to zip tie that. Really, it's not even necessary because it's not going anywhere over here the way that it's situated. It's really not even necessary. So we're going to make sure that this is snapped together good and go ahead and get our safety lock on it there. Okay, like I said, I'm going to work on these vacuums here. We got one running our cruise control. We'll just take off this old one and go ahead and connect that. And this actually is supposed to go make sure we got our throttle cables in the position here. We don't want stuff getting wrapped up on top of each other here. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and get this vacuum here back into position. Always make sure you got stuff routed where it's supposed to be. And see, this one is going, we've got connected back here already. We just disconnected it here at the intake. And this is the one off of the new engine. I'm going to go ahead and get that into place. And now our fuel is right there. All I have to do is take that now and line up the little tabs there and we just lock that right back into place. So just push the tabs until you can get them to lock on there. Okay, so we got our fuel reconnected, and so we got our vacuums. All the wires will be connected already, and we just have to make sure that nothing is routed where it's not supposed to be. Looks like we need a zip tie on this. We do not want any wires falling down on exhaust. That will cause big problems. So I think we've got most everything up here. We're going to go ahead and get our throttle cables back on here next. Okay, so this cruise control slides in first, the smaller one. The throttle, it has the little plastic piece that locks in. It slides right into this next, and we just line it up. And that little bitty piece, plastic piece there, just locks those two in, and then we just have to flip this back over and pull the excess around and slide those in. Of course, we'll have to do the cruise control first, so I'm going to go ahead and flip that back and slide it in to that right there. Okay, so we got those on there. The only piece we have left is our little plastic guard, and we'll get that on here eventually. I think the next thing, I've got everything that I want to do up here. At the moment, we're going to go ahead and hop on our alternator. So the CV axle's out and the little oil cooler, so I'll have no problems getting under there. If it's got it laying over here, we're going to go ahead and work on getting that into place over here. I'm going to have to lift my vehicle up a little bit. It's a little bit too low to be getting under here doing anything, so I'm going to go ahead and lift it up slightly so I can get under here and do something at the moment. Okay, you'll remember this bracket right here that holds the alternator on, where you got the 3 short bolts. Now, we've got one right here. I know we'd removed that previously. This one has the mount on there, so we're going to go ahead and just get this up into place. And we've got the bolt up there. You can see the tensioner sticking out right there, that stud, and the bolt going the other way. We're just going to slide this up onto that. Now we're going to have to get under the car and come through right here, and you notice I left the oil cooler out. It's going to make it even easier. There's plenty of room. So we're going to go ahead and crawl into there and get this alternator into place. Easy to do with the CV axle and that oil cooler out of the way. And you can see you got all kinds of room here with this oil cooler and this CV out. I've just got it sitting there on the oil filter, keeping it from falling. Now we're going to have to go ahead and connect. We just got this clip, and then we've got our 10 going on the back. So we'll just orient it down here momentarily where we can go ahead and connect that. Here's our clip. Just push it on really good till it snaps. And go ahead and get your wire and nut back on there. So we'll go ahead and fasten that down with a small ratchet. And once we get that, then we'll just set it on that bolt up there. We want to definitely make sure these are connected. And you can see how this was getting scuffed on something, so I put some corrugated wrap and put some heat tape on it too, because this is not the first PT Cruiser I've seen these wires. I don't know, I guess they're hitting on the CV axle, rub it on something under here, and it definitely will start causing a lot of issues, and you'll lose your alternator or start shorting stuff out in a hurry. So if you have a bad alternator, it's not a bad idea to check that out. Check these wires out, because I have seen it where it wasn't the alternator and actually had bad scuffed bare wires, and they were shorting and everything else. So not a bad idea. So now I'm ready to take it and go ahead and slip it up in here, and we're going to get on that bolt and get it set on this ledge right here. And sometimes it's a little snug, and you might have to take and wedge it on there, or get you some spray lubricant. And there you go, it just set right into place. So now I just got to slip it on that bolt, and we'll go ahead and start snugging this down. So this is definitely the first thing I want to do, because it's one of the more difficult parts to get in the vehicle, but it wasn't worth leaving it on, fitting it in here, because I didn't want to have to watch for it. So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to slip it on that bolt. We're going to get the nuts and stuff on there and start trying to snug this down. Okay, now we're just taking our 15mm, and we got this little special tab bolt that goes on right there to start threading your bolt into that, and that will keep it from rotating while you tighten it. I've got an extra. I just wanted to show you this tensioner. See, this is the bolt that goes through the front of that alternator. It slips on there. This is the 15 that holds the top of the alternator in place. Now this tensioner comes through the back, so you push your alternator up there and you get it about in position. Well, then you go to tightening this, and all this bolt does is thread through this, and as it does so, it just pulls this bolt back and tightens that belt up for that alternator. So that's all there is to that, and it actually works really well, and I've never really had any problems with these unless somebody stripped one of these out, and then you just have to get another one. Okay, I went ahead and slipped a new belt on this alternator. Now I would tell you that you want to, if you're replacing the belt, make sure to back that tensioner bolt up here off some more of the 13mm down there on the back. If you don't back that off, you won't be able to fit your belt. So just keep backing it off until you can fit it on there easily, because those old belts will stretch quite a bit. I was looking at the old one, and it looked like it stretched a good little ½ inch or more. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and tighten that tensioner up, just turning it clockwise until I feel that it's pretty snug, usually where it doesn't flex more than a 45 or so, and then I'll just go ahead and tighten the bolts. The way I do it is set this part back and go ahead and then put a little tension on this bottom bolt, because it's going to pivot, and then you don't have to get it really tight, but put a little tension on that bolt there, and then leave the top one loose a little bit. Just crack it loose a little bit, and then go ahead and run your tensioner down. You just don't want them loose as all get out, because it'll be flopping around. Okay, so I just went ahead and tightened that alternator down, because I got the tension on there. Right, we just snugged down the top and the bottom 15, and now that I've got that in, we're going to go ahead and put this oil cooler for the power steering back in, and there's just a couple of tins that hold it here. Said it's very easy to get to, and it was not worth having in the vehicle while removing it. And you can see we got a hose right here, we got a clamp up there, it's going on this end. We got this one that's going down there on this. So we've also got an O2 sensor running back that way that needs to be connected while we're down here. We got these. We're going to go ahead and connect that, and we'll pop these lines onto our oil cooler here. Okay, so we just slipped that in onto that, and we've slipped this in. We'll just get a pliers and get our clamp on there, and then we're just going to get our 10 millimeters back into the top of this. Nothing to this. And like I said, if you're taking the engine out, take this out of your way, because you run the risk of damaging it. And then we'll go ahead, if I can, get this exhaust reconnected. Now I may have to go ahead and get my engine mount. Looks like the engine shifted way too much for me to connect that right now. We'll go ahead and get this here finished buttoned down, and then we'll work on that. And this also sets in this little clamp, by the way. It's got a plastic clip right here. It just sits in there. I'm getting ready to put this power steering pump. This bracket holds it from the back. It goes into the front cover here. This is just loose for now. Putting it in there as a whole. This goes underneath the engine, back to the rack and pinion there, and this bolts underneath to the bottom of the oil pan, and this bolts up here on the side of the engine. However, this one's unnecessary, and it's a good idea just to not even put that one in, because if you ever have to move it, it's like way more work to get that one little bolt out there. So we're just going to feed it either from up here or underneath or something, just get it going, and go ahead and get this power steering hooked back up. It's going to hook right up here, this hose right up here on the top, and we fit it right in to the front cover, timing cover there, and then that bracket right there. It's got some 313s that come into the back of it. Okay, so I had to actually take the AC compressor back off. It is impossible to get the power steering pump in with the AC compressor on. So I messed with a lot of these cars, but they're a puzzle, and just the way it works in layers, if you put one thing on, you can't get something else on, so you run into that a lot with these cars. It's basically impossible to get a part in without removing 2 or 3 other parts, so we had to take this back off. It's not a big deal. But now, make sure you put your power steering pump on first. Don't do like I did there, because you won't be able to get it on once the air compressor, you can't get it back in here behind these lines or anything. So we got that into place. Now we got our hose slipped on. We're going to put this pesky bracket back where it goes here, and hopefully get our bolts into this power steering pump now, if it'll cooperate. Okay, so we got our 3 13s in the back of that power steering pump tightened down, and we just put the AC compressor back on. It's not a big deal. Getting ready to get under the car here. We got a couple of 15s that are going to hold this into place here. So we're going to go ahead and get this up in here. I'm going to attach that up here. We need to make sure we wipe that off, and it's just going to go right back up in here. And it's behind that, but it's easier to get from the top. So we're going to like set it up in there, and then we'll go up top and tighten it down with the 18. Okay, so we're just taking our 15 and just tightening these here on this. Go ahead and get these snug down now. Okay, I actually hadn't tightened my fuse box down. I'm glad that I hadn't done that yet, because I actually remembered why I needed that out of the way. But anyways, you can look right through here. This is where we took it out. We're going to reach back in there and get that started by hand a little bit, and then we'll take our 18. You can see it right there. Starting by hand. We'll take our 18 here and let's get on that and finish securing that all the way, and we'll have it really pretty easy to get to this from up here. And so we'll go ahead and get this secured down, and we've just about got most everything we can do at this point. Okay, so we finished securing that 18 right there, that flare fitting. We're going to go ahead and get up here to putting some motor mounts on now. Like I said, this engine's twisted. You have to take you a jack or something and a block and get right here and push it a little bit. I think we're going to start with the lower one and get it into place here first. I don't know the condition of yours, but I would expect that you'll need to be replacing these. Every mount on this car at close to 200,000 was completely shot. And now when I say shot, I mean really, really trashed. Every one of them was basically falling apart. There's that one. So I got all my hardware here. We're just going to get everything and get into place. Well, it's real important to put stuff back where it goes so you're not losing it and wondering what bolts go to what, because some of them look alike. So I'm going to go ahead and slip this into here. I just like to get this side started into here. Now it's got a welded nut on that back side there, so it will not spin, and we'll just need to get it fastened. Keep up with all your parts. We'll go ahead and thread that in to that back, and we'll get us a jack up here like I said, and we'll lift up on the front, get up here on this oil pan or somewhere with a jack. You can see how far off we are. Show what I'm talking about. There is the hole. You can see I'm a good inch off of it, that it's twisted, so we need to twist it back into alignment before we can get this into place. You can see it doesn't take much to twist it. It just rotates a little bit and it lines up. Now I'm tightening all these at once. I'm also putting a little bit of Loctite, but I like to leave all these cracked just a little bit so it's not putting any undue stress on stuff. And once we get everything into position, then we'll take and tighten everything down at once. And just got to get this lined up right here first. These are both here 18s. Said I'm just running them down kind of loose, and I'm gonna, once I get it just kind of barely tightened down, we'll get on the top mount. But we're gonna leave everything loose, just keep from putting any undue stress on anything, and kind of keeps everything in the proper alignment. I've got that. I'll back it off a little bit, and now we'll go ahead and work on our top one, getting it into line. We may have to move it a little more to line it up. Okay, so we just have our mount sitting here. We're going to go ahead and just fasten this to this first. This bolt, go through here, put a little bit of Loctite, and then we'll work it in to the car over there. Okay, so it'll just go on there like that. And we'll just go over here and we'll wiggle these lines around a little bit so we can get it into the car. So a lot of times you can pull these over, just wiggle them which way, and we'll get it in here into place, but usually it will fit. but you just have to work it and wiggle it around and move your lines over just a little bit. Just be careful, don't bust your lines. Okay, there we got it wiggled into place. Just got to get our two 15s here and then this big 18. Put some medium Loctite on these. Okay, sometimes you can just tighten this piece with the bolt that's in the back that you can't really see there, and then put it on here and bolt it down. Sometimes it doesn't want to do that. In this case, it didn't want to do that, so I had to loosely put it on here, tighten these, and then come in back here with a wrench and finish tightening this, because for whatever reason it didn't want to line up. If you ain't careful, you'll strip your threads and have a big mess, because I've done that before. So be cautious. You don't want to get your bolts cross-threaded. You can't get them going by hand or very easily. Just stop what you're doing. Okay, so I've took the tension off the jack and everything, and now with everything into place, we go ahead and we just tighten these 18s down really good, and we go down here and we're going to tighten these and these right here really good. These 18s, just kind of tighten them all at once. Then I'm going to go ahead and just re-snug this too, because I didn't want this to be in a bind when I was snugging everything else. Okay, so we got all of our mounts snugged down. The next thing, we're just going to put this brace back in here. It just slips on to this here, and there's a washer down at the bottom there. It goes on here, and then just put that back. So we're just going to snug this back into place, and then we may go ahead and get on our CV axles. That looks like I've got my brace backwards here, but we got to flip it around. We're going to go ahead and snap another cap. You got a little wire that runs into there as well. We'll just snap this cap back into place. So we got that tight. I think we're going to go ahead and move on to our CV axles. It doesn't take but a minute to get those back in. Okay, we started with our long one. We'll just get up under here and get it the rest of the way. Already cleaned this end off. And we'll just slide it on up in here carefully and pop it in that. Okay, and this one here was able just to slide in there without even having to hit it with the rubber mallet. It just slid right into place. So we're going to go ahead and get out here. We've got our other one, and we're just going to do the same thing with it. Because sometimes you have to use the rubber mallet to get it into place, but just get it lined up and give it a good shove. See, this one here we're going to actually have to hit with the rubber mallet. It's not going in as easy. Okay, and just hit it right here on this. That rubber mallet, while you're holding it, just knocks it right into place. So we're ready to go ahead and just hook everything up here. We've got all of our washers and everything on here, and we're just going to get a little bit of lithium grease, spray into that, and then we'll go ahead and work that into place. So we sprayed that down real good, so this just prevents this from seizing up in the future. And we've got it lined up. Now we're just going to take these off right here, and we'll slip it. Once we slip this up into this part of the strut, it'll just go basically right into place. We just have to kind of pull them both at the same time. It's pretty much impossible to do one-handed here, but yeah, we're just going to push this up into that and pull the strut together, and that spline will go right into place. Okay, now we'll just tighten this nut up on this side and hold this with these are both 19s, and it'll just pull those splines right back into there. And once we get that, we'll work on putting this back on. Okay, these are 21s, by the way. I said 19, but that's a 21. So we're going to go ahead and get this axle nut back on here. We got the washer And we've got our 32. And I'm using the impact to tighten this down. So I won't need to, if you don't have the impact, like I said, you'll have to put your tire on, lower it down, and torque it, do whatever you feel. Okay, so we got that torqued down with our 32. Now we're going to put our little spring back on here, and then we're going to line this up like so, and then we'll go ahead and get our cotter pin back in here, and we'll need to bend this all the way back over, and if you don't, you won't be able to get your wheel or tire on there anyway. Okay, now we got our brake caliper. We've just got these 18s for this bracket that we need to get back in here, and we're just going to slip this back over our rotor here, and we'll go ahead and get this locked into place. Okay, with the caliper on, we just have to get our tire on now. We're going to go ahead and just put that on, and then we're going to go to the other side. Y'all see me put the CV axle in, so we're just going to do the same exact thing to the other side. We're going to pop it back in the knuckle, get our knuckle back on, get our axle nut, pop our brake caliper back on, and we'll be all done up. We'll get the wheel on over there, and we'll have that done. Now, of course, when we get to putting fluid back in this, we'll want to get under here. We'll just keep it lift up so we can watch and make sure that we don't have any leaks. Sometimes, you know, you don't change the CV axle seals, and I didn't this time. You could get some leaks, or it may have been leaking before, but we'll see. And if it is, we'll just have to deal with it. We'll have to take it back out and put another seal in there. So anyway, so I'm going to just get the wheel on here next, and then we'll just do the same exact thing on the other side, and then we'll move on from here. Okay, and with this twisted into place, I'm going to go ahead and get under here and get this exhaust. Now, it was a little bit off here earlier. This thing can be pushed around. This heat shield's like bent a little bit. We can straighten that out easily by hand here. And we got to get way back here with our long extension. We got our little 13 millimeters, and we'll get back here and get those started. But I'm gonna like bend this back a little bit here first. Okay, so we just lifted up on this a little bit, and we made sure that it was lined up. We made sure our gasket was on there, and we just pushed it back up into place. So we just got the 4 nuts. We're gonna start them by hand, and then we'll just crank them down with our long extension there, and we'll be all finished up with this right here. We done got our O2 connector into place here, and we'll probably need to zip tie that to something so it's not getting caught up anywhere. Okay, so we got all those good and tight, and I'm going to go ahead and get that ground wire I see dangling there connected up top before I forget about that. Okay, now just over here hooking back up my heater core hoses here, and you remember I just disconnected them right here just to make it easier. So now we got those both connected, and we're just kind of fastening this down. We're just kind of double checking some things. It looks like we've pretty much got everything. We do have to get our fan and new radiator. I have the radiator. I'm still waiting on the fan and I want to put them in at the same time. It's just easier to put them in at the same time. Like I said, everything else is hooked up. The exhaust, we've got everything pretty much. Looking for my coolant bottle hose. Looks like it's thrown way up here. We need to get it back over here behind these lines over here. So I'm going to work on that for a minute. And let's see. Okay. Just remember it running down in here a little bit, and then it just routes back up to here. Everything's pretty tight. So now we got that. I got my ground wire. Said I'm just double checking things. All the wires were pretty well hooked up before the engine ever went in, with the exception of just a few things. So yeah, it looks like we're pretty much at this point. We're going to be at a standstill waiting on my new fan, because the old one was just trashed. And so those things, a lot of times the fan will be the major problem. That thing goes out and it causes lots of trouble. So when I get that, we'll get those in there and we'll be all but finished up here. Okay, so we got our new fan and radiator. You've seen the one that I took out, and it was like completely fried, and the wires are melting up there. It's probably a sign that the the fan bearings are locking up. And so we had took that out. This is our new radiator, and we're gonna mate these up out here and then go ahead and put it into the car. We'll get the old one over here and take the bolts and stuff that we're going to need off of it, but pretty easy to do it this way if you put it together. See, it's already got your spots for you to bolt it up to there. And the way I usually do this, because I noticed it didn't have a bolt over here, but I usually just bolt the top two and the bottom two. That is enough. It's plenty enough, and even you don't even probably need that many, but that's plenty enough to hold this. And if you have to take it off, it's way easier. This one and this one are just way too hard to get to on this car, and there's no sense in them being there to begin with. We'll probably take and tape these up. This is the where your transmission cooler lines go into. I'm just going to use the one that's on there. Those seem to be pretty good coolers, and it actually probably does a better job than what this here would do. So we're going to go ahead and bolt it down, work on getting this into the car here. So we're just going to bolt the bottom and the top two, and then we'll go ahead and bolt it to our condenser over there. So this is what I was talking about with this old fan. I don't know if I would have showed you that earlier, but that's not good. You know, if you got fan issues going on, you can definitely sometimes take a look. And I mean, something like that could start a fire or something. It's very dangerous. But so we've got our bolts in here. We're just going to remove these and cross them over to the other one there. And this is, I mean, it's pretty much an identical fan. Like I said, you can get this on, I got this one on eBay, and it was like $50. I've got one of these before. It worked just fine. It comes with the see, here's your high and low relays, and it comes with new relays and everything. And I can't see, you know, you put a new fan on and not replacing, you know, your relays. You know, I don't want to reuse any of this stuff. It's just, you know, doesn't make any sense. You put a new fan, you put the old relays on, you know, put it new, and then you don't have to worry about it. And then you also got a warranty. But, you know, so you can get them from the part stores too. It just depends on if you want to, you know, go grab it and have the convenience, or order it and wait on it. Don't forget to take these little rubber grommets off of your old radiator. They usually never come with these. I have not seen any of them come with them. So I'm going to go ahead and tape these little ports up that we're not going to be using. Alright, so now we're just ready to go ahead and get it on over here to the car. This is going to be our top right here. And so just be careful, put it in so you're not damaging your fins and stuff. Okay, you notice I don't even have my brace in here at this point, but it's all bent up. I'm just starting your second hole down, start that into condenser, and the same on this side. We'll start down into the second hole. Get them lined up loosely before you go to tightening them. Okay, I'm just getting ready to put this transmission cooler on here. So it just bolts in the spot right here and goes in to these. I'm just going to kind of lift this into position and put it into place. Alright, so we got that bolted into place there. And we're just going to go ahead and get down here on this connector and connect these two, this 4-prong connector. We're going to go ahead and get that into place. Okay, so we just got in here and reconnected this while we got this bracket out, and we'll probably just go ahead and put our brace in now. It's bent, but at least it will hold it until we can get a replacement. Okay, I've got this little piece. I'm just getting ready to replace it. I took it loose. It goes right here. We're just going to get those bolts in it, and then we're going to snap that little air sensor back on there. Okay, now we're getting ready to replace this top piece, and it's just got the 3 10mm on each side. And while we're at it, we'll go ahead and pop this back on. Now, if your bottom brace has been wrecked and hit like this one, you will never get these to line up properly. And it's really hard. Sometimes it'll push it up to the point it makes it difficult to even bolt this piece down. So that's definitely something that needs to be replaced. Probably have to get one off another car. Okay, now with that brace back in there, so we just secured these 3 on each side, and this one, we're going to go ahead and get our bumper back into place. We'll start by fastening these up here, going into this. We'll hold it into place, and then we'll work on getting the ones on the fender. And remember, these have these little rubber tabs here. You just slide your bumper up onto those. This kind of helps lock it in place. And then just go ahead and put your screw on each side for this. And you got another one over here. And now you just come over here to each side and put it up onto your studs right here. And then we got the 10mm that come underneath from under this fender here. And we'll go ahead and get those into place there on each side. Okay, now we just got the 7mm that go through this flap in to the side right here. And then if you haven't broken and lost your little push tabs under here, there will be some of those to pop into place, but most of this is broken, so I'm not even going to be worrying with that for now. Okay, so it's looking a little better. I put this weather strip back on here, and I'm just getting ready to put the grill back into place. Remember to slide those in the bottom and kind of push it in until it snaps. And so I'd always put these screws back where they go so I'm not losing them. These are 7mm. Okay, right now I'm just putting this battery tray back in here and put some lubrication where these bolts go. They're pretty rusty. Seen some of them that you had to drill out because they were so bad corroded. Okay, so now we just got our battery in here, and we're going to go ahead and get our air box hooked up and get this sensor that's stuck back here hooked back to our air box, our air intake. Okay, so air box is on. Only other thing we've done, we got a new oil filter on it. We changed the oil. We've got about 4 quarts of ATF plus 4. I'd expect it's going to take quite a bit more. The last one I put about 9 quarts in. I don't really know how much I lost, but I know it was over a gallon, so I'm just going to add it slowly. I don't want to overfill it, and I don't know that it was to the proper level to begin with. We're going to go ahead and work on getting some coolant in here next, and then we'll see about firing this thing up shortly. I expect us not to have any problem. It felt like it had a tremendous amount of compression, so we'll see what happens here. If you don't have one of these, get yourself one of these. It's like a bleeding funnel for getting the air out, and it works really well. Has different attachments, so it snugs right up to where your cap goes, and it fits on tightly. You can fill it and not have to worry about it overflowing and while you're working all of the air out of the system, and you will have a lot of air in the system changing an engine like this. Concentrated jug, and I'll just put a jug in and put a gallon of distilled water and just keep going from there. Okay, so I just got about 2 gallons of coolant in here. We're going to go ahead and try cranking it up here and see what it's going to do. You can see the amount of miles on this, but now it's got a 60,000 mile engine in it. There we are. Now the most important thing you want to do when you get one going is to keep a check on any leaks. Keep a check on your temperature gauges. I hear the power steering whining. A little bit low on fluid. So we're just going to keep putting fluids in it, let it run, work the air out here, and check for leaks. One of my biggest concerns with this car, with the amount of miles, is the transmission. You know, when something's not running, you get it as a project, you can have no idea if the transmission's even any good, and if it's shot too. And the fluid was very black. It was black like oil, so it's kind of iffy, but we're going to find out here shortly. Not uncommon to have a little smoking when everything's been setting and you've gotten oil and everything spilt everywhere. You're going to have some smoking going on, so don't panic. I just wanted to show you this. I'd run it up to temperature, putting coolant in it, and noticed the fan wasn't coming on whatsoever, and then took and kicked the AC on, still no fan, so I went ahead and shut the car down because I was to the halfway mark. If you come in here to your fuse box, right here is a 50 amp fuse. You'll want to check that. If it's blowed out, you can see those in there. I think you can see them. They're broken. It's even kind of rattling around. But this main fuse got blowed out. And of course, you've seen the condition of that fan that had the wires melted on it. So, you know, it takes a lot to blow one of these. This thing finally blew, but I've got a replacement, and we're going to go ahead and pop this one in here, and this thing should work. But at least the fuse did its job. It blew out before it could do some serious damage, and that's the whole purpose of it. So we're just going to put this back on here, or try to, and we will go ahead and crank it back up and see. That's a brand new fan. There's absolutely no reason that it shouldn't be kicking on at this point. So we're going to go ahead and crank it back up, and we'll test it out here and see what it's doing. Okay, and that done the trick. I don't know if you can see that or hear if that fan did kick on. And if I come in here and turn this AC on, it should kick on as well. Should kick on automatically. So we'll fill down here, and it is, in fact, be careful with your pipes, they're really hot, but it is running now. That thing should be kicking on as soon as it gets up close to temp there, the halfway mark. So check that fuse if you're having trouble. Of course, you got your relays. In this case, they're both brand new. The fans are brand new, so there's no reason it shouldn't have been working. Surprisingly enough, the AC is actually blowing cool in this car. I didn't expect it to work at all. The transmission, I did engage it. Reverse forward is actually working. It wasn't bucking or anything. So I'm curious to see how it does going down the road. This thing's actually blowing ice cold, and I actually didn't expect it to be doing that. Got a check engine light. I don't know if it's an old light or what, but I'll have to look at it and clear that out and see what's going on there. So just keeping an eye on leaks. I want to run it for a bit, make sure that I've got all the air out, and then I'm going to go ahead and take it down the road, see how it does. I didn't even put any gas treatment in here, so I'm kind of surprised. It's probably been sitting around for a bit, but it seems to be doing okay. Okay, so here we are driving it, and done took it on one little test run, and it appears to be doing really good. The fluids and everything good. Even the air's working good. The transmission is shifting out good, and just wanted to show you how I'm really surprised. I know that it needs some brake work and some suspension work, but all things considered, it actually feels pretty good. And I'm surprised, you know, I'm really impressed with the transmission. This thing has a lot of miles on it, and that transmission fluid was really black. So I'm really impressed that it's shifting and everything just fine. But the thing about it, we got a lot of new fluid in there because most of it was drained out. But the engine sounds just awesome. The engine sounds really good. It's really performing well. It's nice to take a good engine and put it in something that's not running and bring it back to life. Basically save this car from being put into the scrap yard. So a lot of people will not take and fix one unless it's really nice. So basically save this thing from going to the scrap yard. But like I said, it's been a fun project, and it really wasn't that bad at all. Like I said, it's running really good, other than getting some brakes on here and doing a few things like that, because the brakes are kind of weak and they're definitely wore down and need to be replaced. It could use some tie rods and some suspension work, but other than that, it's holding up really well. And so I just wanted to show y'all this running down the road, and it's even the suspension, everything feels pretty good considering the amount of miles on it. So I said that's gonna conclude this video. Please like and subscribe if you found it helpful, and as always, I thank you for watching.